All right, in this video, I'm going to explain the paradise in the hereafter that the Quran promises the righteous believers, the heaven that the Muslims are striving to go to. This is explained beautifully in this book that I've been listening to on audio. This book is called BlackRoot Science, and this book is written by Modimoncho. It's the name of the author. A friend of mine gave this book to me, and I've been listening to it on PDF using the Speechify app, which is a great app. It will read any PDF. And I've got to get a copy on paperback real soon because this book is profound. This book has a lot of real great, awesome truth, awesome knowledge in it. Very much recommend this book. This book is the gospel right here. You got to get this book. It's a must read. BlackRoot Science by Modimoncho. It explains a lot of what Islam really is. It gives knowledge on esoteric Islam. It explains a lot of things that your regular fundamentalist Sunni Muslims, who are no different than fundamentalist Christians, aren't going to understand at all. Like, it's going to give you the knowledge of Islam on an esoteric level that's way above fundamentalist, orthodox, Sunni Muslims. They're all the same, fundamentalist, orthodox, Sunni Muslims, and Methodist, Pentecostal Christians, all in the same category. They're all religious people, you know. All right, so this here is a chart that shows the various planes of existence. This is referred to as plane esotericism, and you can do some research on this, look this up, right? There are other graphs and other charts that show various different versions of it, but this is a simple version of it, right? So we are here in what is referred to as Malkuth, the physical plane. Then above the physical plane is the astral plane. When you're dreaming, you're in the astral realm, right? Which astral relates to the word astronomy. Astrology has to do with the stars, the planets, the cosmos, because the alignments of the planets affect your feelings and emotions, and your dreams are your feelings and emotions taking on a form of physical expression within the mind. So when you're dreaming, you are in the astral realm. Above the astral realms, the causal realm. Above the causal realms, the mental realm. Above the mental realms, the ethereal realm. Above the ethereal realm is the void, right? Then you have the divine sound current and the soul at the very top. So the paradise that the Quran talks about in the hereafter only goes this high. It is a mental database that the Abrahamic God created to store as a sort of museum exhibit the memory of all of the righteous deeds of his creation. So there isn't any life beyond the grave in the way that a religious person thinks. Like, there's no continuation of the ego after the body decomposes. So in the scripture, like in the Quran, it's talking about these things in parables, in metaphors, in similitude. So it's explaining it in a way that's maybe conducive for someone who's on a kindergarten level to understand, you know, but it isn't exactly as they think. It just means that their righteous deeds that they've done will be recorded and stored in this mental database that the Abrahamic God created. Yeah, it's almost kind of like this. This is the Kabbalah, the so-called tree of life right here. It's almost like we're here in the physical plane, what's referred to as Malkuth. And the Abrahamic religious people, or the fundamentalist orthodox religious people, they're striving to go to a paradise, a heaven that's like only here, right? That only goes like this high. It's kind of like that, you know. I'm just putting it in a way that it can maybe make sense. I'm trying to get it into perspective. So this book, BlackRoot Science, you can order a copy like online off Amazon, and I'm going to get me a copy pretty soon. But I've been listening to it on audio, like I said. And pretty soon here, I'm going to play the audio of the section of this book that explains what the hereafter is that the Quran talks about, the paradise, the heaven that the righteous believers are promised who submit to Allah in Islam afterwards when they go to the hereafter, right? The hereafter is not even what Orthodox fundamentalist Muslims even think it is. It's nothing like what they actually think it is. When the Quran talks about being on these elevated sofas and beautiful couches, surrounded by fruit of abundance, all the fruit you can eat, and virgins running around everywhere, and all of those kinds of things, it isn't what the Muslims actually think it is. They take scripture literally at face value, and that's the problem. They don't see the similitude in it. So the important thing to understand is that we are in a mental realm down here in Malkuth. All of this is mental. I'm going to explain this and break this down. Here we have The Kabbalion, very good book. This is sort of like your beginner entry level to metaphysics. And principle number one is the principle of mentalism. The universe is mental, the mind is all, right? You see that right there? All of this is mental. And quantum mechanics talks about this too. Like when I'm not home and no one's looking at my house doesn't exist. What exists is wave potentials that collapse into the particles that I'm supposed to perceive when I come home, when I pull up in the driveway in my car and look at my house. When I leave this room and close the door, lights are off, no one's in here, I take my cat out of here, no one's in here to perceive this, the room ceases to exist until it's perceived again. Schrodinger's experiment, the double slit experiment, show this, that atoms are actually in a state of all potential or non-existence until they're being observed. When I close my closet door and no one's in the closet observing any of that stuff, it ceases to exist until it is again being observed. This is absolutely evidential in quantum mechanics. So all of this is a mind projection. That's what's important to understand. This will be hard for your fundamentalist, orthodox, religious people to get, but that's what's important to understand. That's what all of this is. And so in this book, The Kabbalion, you can go on to study the other remaining 6 principles, and there's also a 8th principle, which is occult, esoteric, but that's like a topic for a different video. And so there's a lot of wisdom in this Quran. It has a lot of deep, profound, encoded, esoteric truth in it. But it isn't what the Orthodox fundamentalist Muslims even think it is at all. The mentality that the Orthodox fundamentalist Muslims have is that they fear Allah so much and they worship and revere Allah so much. They have so much honor, fear, and reverence for their God that they don't want to go into what they see as a dangerous zone in coming up with their own understanding of things. So in Orthodox fundamentalist Islam, they're not allowed to interpret this book for themselves. They ascribe to an ideology that as a Muslim, you're just supposed to submit, pray, and practice Islam, but you're not supposed to explain what any of these verses mean or interpret it for yourself unless you are a sheikh or an imam or someone who has graduated with an Islamic degree from an Islamic institution. So they actually worship a God that keeps them very constrained. They don't even see that they're worshiping. Nonetheless, moving on. See, throughout history, here's some information that's been kept hidden or occult as well. Children have a much more powerful imagination than adults do. So, for example, when a child reads Harry Potter, they actually make it something more real in the astral realm than an adult would who reads Harry Potter. So the author who wrote the Harry Potter books is actually creating a real world in the astral realm when millions of people all over the planet, I don't know if it's millions, but you get the idea, children worldwide are purchasing these books and reading these books. And what's different about reading a book, a novel, a fictional story, as opposed to watching it on the screen, as opposed to watching a show or a movie, is that when you read a fictional story, you're creating the image for yourself in your mind of what's going on. Like, if I read a Stephen King novel, I'm actually creating in my mind the image of what's going on rather than watching a movie of a Stephen King novel, such as The Shining or Pet Sematary. You get the idea. So when different children read these books, for example, they picture the scenario in their minds in different ways. So you got all these different people reading these Harry Potter books, and they're all making up the image in their mind. So they're all creating the image of the story in their minds, but in different various versions. So when someone writes one of these books and the book gets sold worldwide, many people all over the planet are creating a version of that story in the astral realm, and it's becoming real in the astral realm. So when you go out and purchase a Harry Potter book and read the story and vision it in your imagination, you're actually creating something in the collective consciousness that becomes real, and others catch on to it. It's becoming a real world in the collective conscious and collective unconscious. Like if you watch the show The Magicians, same concept with Fillory, which is a fictional world that's written in these novels, these stories, which become real. Like Freddy Krueger and Jason are real in the astral realm. Every Halloween, people dress up as it. People watch the movies. People got posters on their wall of it. They're making it real in the collective consciousness. So all of us actually have the ability to create entire worlds within our minds. This is a real science, and this is going to sound crazy. This is hard for the religious people to understand, but that's how this world was created. This is actually a holographic mental universe being projected from the mind. Now, some of you might have heard of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who founded the group known as the Nation of Islam in Detroit in 1930, which is a very different theology from standard fundamentalist Sunni Orthodox Islam. And actually, the fundamentalist Arabs version of Islam, or what is usually referred to as Sunni Islam, the Orthodox fundamentalist version of the religion, is a whole different religion. They believe a whole different thing. And they actually totally disown the Nation of Islam as founded by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They accuse it of being blasphemy and say it's not true Islam and has nothing to do with the true teachings of Islam. This is what they say. But, they're very wrong. What Elijah Muhammad taught is actually the real, higher level, metaphysical, esoteric teachings of Islam. And in one of his best books, which is called Message to the Black Man in America, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says here on this page here, is God a man or a spirit? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he's talking about Allah, the God of the Quran. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says right here, God is a man. Man means mind. And he says we cannot make him other than man, right? For man's mind is capable of accomplishing anything he can conceive. Man's mind is actually supreme. This is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is explaining here in his book, Message to the Black Man in America. See, what the Orthodox fundamentalist Sunni Muslims fail to realize is that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad actually brought a higher, deeper metaphysical understanding of this theology. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad actually brought us something that was perfect for us at the time. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad actually brought black people the perfect program to resurrect from out of the mental grave. See, but to an Orthodox Sunni Muslim, they're going to be like, that is blasphemy. Astaghfirullah, subhanallah. You cannot say Allah is a man. No, the Quran does not say Allah is a man. No, this is blasphemy, brother. These people, they don't even understand deeper level metaphysics and esoteric knowledge of stuff. Like I even talked to one of these guys, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said Allah is a man. A-L-L-A-H, arm, leg, arm, head. And they're just like, oh no, that's misguided, brother. Religious people are so, just can't take them seriously. And some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the organization known as the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths and the 120 degrees, the 120 degrees of supreme wisdom. Those are the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And that's a much more higher esoteric and even occult knowledge and understanding toward Islam than you're going to get like going to some mosque on Friday to hear some Sunni give a sermon on Friday afternoon. All they're going to do is bore you and read some hadith. They're not going to give you no esoteric understanding of things, you know what I'm saying? So this book, BlackRoot Science, explains that Yahweh, the Abrahamic God, who is Yaqub, who is symbolically Jacob, the creator of Adam, was actually a flesh and blood man. He was here about 6,000 years ago. He lived to be 150 years old. He created this entire world we live in, which is a mental construct. And when he did this, he also created a mental database that would save the righteous deeds of his creation, Adam. And what is referred to as hell in the Quran and the hereafter would sort of like be the lower vibrational place, or what might be referred to as the garbage dump or the waste disposal of all of the wicked deeds that his creation, Adam, commits, right? Prophet Muhammad came to guide the Adamic people. So in Islam, the hereafter that they're striving for isn't even a very high place, right? On this chart, here's the chart of the realms. The hereafter that the Orthodox fundamentalist Muslims are striving to get to, that paradise, that heaven, it only goes this high to the mental realm right here. So I'm going to go ahead and roll the clip of this great book, BlackRoot Science by Modimoncho. Let's go. And one more thing real quick. For Yaqub's creation, Yaqub is Yahweh. For Yaqub's creation, which is the Adamic people, that's a very high place that they're striving to go. to do righteous deeds. Those righteous deeds will be saved in this mental data bank that he constructed for them. So the more the Adamic people do righteous deeds, the more they're making themselves live on eternally, because their righteous deeds will be remembered and saved in this exhibit, this mental data bank. But it doesn't mean that their ego is going to continue on to some paradise after the grave. Okay. BlackRoot Science by Modimoncho. Amazing book. Look for the PDF. Check out this book. I'm going to be doing some more videos on this book soon. I'm going to play a few parts from a few pages in audio recording.
Mr. Muhammad stated, God appeared in the person of Master Fard. Sir, in your opinion, did God appear in the person of Master Farad Muhammad 100? Yes. And he also appeared in the person of Elijah Muhammad. Not only that, but he is appearing right now in your person. The only difference between you and Fard is that he was aware of it, whereas you have yet to be aware. 101. FYI, Mr. Muhammad specifically mentioned God appearing in the person of Master Fard. What you have stated is partially true. Mr. Muhammad stated Mr. Fard was the Supreme Being. Do you believe that? 102. No. And it's not a matter of belief. I know that he is not the Supreme Being in the way you think. The Supreme Being is the divine unity of all black people, the one and only true God. 103. Any black person who reaches that indescribable state knows himself/herself as the one and only Supreme Being, although in that state there is no one else, so there is no one over whom you can be supreme. The physical universe is the only place where new beings or new life can be created. In the mental realms, after ascension, it's not possible to create new creations. This distinction is important in order to understand why the non-blacks cannot have everlasting life in the universe but can have it in the mental realms. Now, after the 7,000-year momentum elapses, then the species that cannot self-regenerate can continue to exist in the mental realms. Ascension to the mental realms requires only one condition: self-consciousness. 127. That's the quality by which a person remembers who he/she is, and is aware of his/her own existence. This awareness memory is all that's needed for a person to transport himself/herself into the mental realms after death. So because the non-blacks have self-consciousness, they too will ascend to Yahweh's heavens, where black people also ascend to in this age. But they did not make these heavens. They were made for them by their Maker. So their survival in them will depend entirely on Yahweh. 128. Yahweh made the races for a reason, which is this: first and foremost, they were made to manifest the evil in God. Secondly, they were made so God could experience the absence of perfection. 129. You may wonder, why would God want to manifest evil and to experience non-perfection? Well, aren't all things contained in God? God is fearless. He/she will experience all that is in him/her, whatever it is. Fortunately, it so happens, as I already stated, that all things are given a set amount of momentum when they are made. But the non-blacks, those who so choose, will continue to live forever in Yahweh's heavens, because the second reason for their creation continues. That reason, as I stated, is God's desire to experience what it's like to seek absolute perfection and never find it. God has always been absolutely 208. Ascension. Perfect. But every one of his qualities has its opposite, and all the opposites must be experienced also. God is afraid of nothing. 131. The only way for him/her to experience the opposites is to make beings that can manifest them. In the case of the absence of perfection, which starts as evil, self-forgetfulness, the light races are the necessary vehicles to bring the experience. 132. Evil itself can only be manifested in the physical universe. It depends on the concept of time, which does not exist in the mental realms. Over there is no time delay between error and correction, or between sin and punishment. The wages of sin there are paid almost immediately after the sin is committed. So evil cannot exist for long there, because sinners would quickly self-destruct. The physical universe is the only ideal place for it, but the mental realms are ideal for manifesting the second purpose. So the non-blacks who choose salvation will live forever in Yahweh's heavens and provide God with the experience he/she intended to have. 133. Although the non-blacks are independent, self-conscious beings with free will, their lives are nonetheless in their Maker. In Him they live, move, and have their being. All their experiences are His property, as ours are the property of our real self. We incarnated on earth for that, and we will unite with and become the first self. Non-blacks live for Yahweh. They cannot unite with Him and His soulmate and the Elohim, but He is conscious in them as their collective consciousness, and all their experiences belong to Him. In a similar way, you yourself have creatures that you created long ago for a particular reason. They exist even now in your heavens, and will continue to exist forever, providing God, your first self, with the experiences for which they were created. 134. Such is the case with Yahweh's creatures, the non-blacks. They will cease to exist on earth because they refused to be grafted back, but they'll continue to live forever in heaven through the benevolence of their Maker, in His mind.